Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
This episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast with Chicago Bears tight end Trey Burton is brought to you by Compassion International. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum for $38. You make a difference in a child's life. More powerful than poverty. We're so grateful to have Compassion International as a sponsor of our podcast, and they do such great work just releasing kids from poverty. Over 1.8 million children thus far have been released from poverty because of the great work being done by Compassion International. Again, it's $38 a month, and your sponsorship provides access to school, medical care, food, vocational training, and the opportunity to know Jesus. We're just giving kids hope here, and that's the great work through Compassion International, and that's what they're doing. This is your chance to make a difference in a child's life. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum and sponsor a child today. Today's guest on the podcast, Chicago Bears tight end Trey Burton. Now, Trey's been on the podcast a few times before, previously when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, including right after the Super Bowl when his Philly special play, maybe the most famous play in Philadelphia Eagles history now, was highlighted and helped lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl victory over the Patriots. And then in March, Trey was a free agent and signed with the Bears, a 4-year deal, and he's their starting tight end. And just the other night, on Monday night, September 17th, Trey scored his first touchdown as a Bear on a shovel pass in helping Chicago to a 24-17 victory over the Seahawks and starting the season at 1-1. Trey is also a strong follower in Christ, and we've had, again, Trey on many times. He's a contributor to Sports Spectrum's The Increase and the content there, where it's first-person athlete articles, and Trey has written about many things in his journey as an athlete and certainly as a football player, including just what it looks like to battle anxiety, including transition. He wrote a story for us when he left the Eagles and said, "Thanks, Philly, it was special," and wrote a first-person account. And now Trey is doing something really cool with combating human trafficking and sex slavery, a passion of his with the International Justice Mission, IJM. And so every touchdown that he scores, he's donating $2,000 to IJM, and every reception that he catches, he's donating $1,000. And we'll talk to Trey about that on the podcast and why he has a passion for combating human trafficking and certainly making a charitable donation to IJM through that. And we'll also talk to him about just transitioning from Philadelphia to Chicago, the decision that he made. And I'd like to ask him what faith looks like in the locker room of the Bears compared to the Eagles. If you remember last year, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, the faith component of their championship run was in the spotlight. People recognized that Carson Wentz and Nick Foles and guys like Jordan Hicks and Chris Maragos and, of course, Trey Burton leading the way there. And now Trey is in Chicago. So what does faith look like in the Bears locker room with guys there? And what does Bible study look like and just staying rooted in God's word during the season? What's that look like? So let's get right to it. Without further ado, our conversation with Chicago Bears tight end Trey Burton here on the podcast. Take a listen. Welcome back, Trey.
What's up, my man? How are you?
It's good to talk to you. And we're talking to you now on Tuesday, the 18th of September. You score your first touchdown as a Bear last night, Monday Night Football, helping Chicago get their first win of the season. They beat Seattle 24-17. What was that night like for you last night? Your home opener, first time in a regular season game, walking out Soldier Field, wearing that home jersey. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was special, man. Something I'll never, ever forget is the national anthem. And I've been trying to figure out, the history behind this, but, and I'm sure you probably couldn't tell on TV, but I guess the guy who does the Blackhawks national anthem, did our national anthem, and I guess the tradition for the Blackhawks games is people go absolutely nuts when he's singing. And so, like, normally, you think national anthem, people are singing along or, it's quiet or whatever. Yeah. But, bro, these people in the stands were out of control, man. They were cheering as if the game was going on while he was singing the national anthem. It was, and, like, honestly, I'm sure you've been to a bunch of sports games and stuff before. Like, the flyover is like one of the most coolest things you can have pregame. But like, dude, I think this might actually beat the flyover, out. And it was just really special.
Even the flyover compared to a game you played about, 7 months ago.
Well, that was a dome.
That's true. That was a dome.
Yeah,
there is no flyover, right?
Nope.
That's awesome. Well, you scored a touchdown in the game. You guys win. How did it feel to get? We're going to talk about why that touchdown means so much, and more touchdowns will mean so much for you this year in a second. But just getting that touchdown, that first score, and winning the game.
It was good, man. It felt really good. Great first drive for us, 12 plays, I think it was, and just marched down the field. And so, it's always good. We're starting to understand and figure out, like why touchdowns are a lot more important than kicking field goals. Obviously, you want to score points, but touchdowns are 10 times, more important. And so, just got to continue to work on that and grow as a team.
Was it was it easier or hard to come back from like the game in week one? Obviously, I don't want to talk too much about that game. It was a hard loss for the Bears, but just coming back from a game like that, is it harder or is it fairly easy to just turn around and be like, all right, we got to move on here?
Yeah, one thing I've learned in this is year 5 now in the NFL is you can't really dwell on past games. I mean, you play 16, 20, including preseason. And then if you make it to the playoffs, more than that. And so each week, is a different grind. And so you could have the best game of your career. And then 7 days later, you're playing another game where your best career game doesn't matter anymore, And so, that's one thing I've definitely learned, just got to continue to move on and don't dwell too much, learn from it, but don't dwell on it.
It is such a week-to-week league, isn't it? I mean, it's just crazy how the NFL works. Was it weird for you, or is it weird wearing a Bears uniform after 4 years in Philly, or are you kind of past that now once you got through training camp?
Yeah, I'm kind of past it. It kind of feels like home, honestly.
Yeah,
I've been welcomed, with nothing but open arms, and so I'm so thankful for how easy of a transition and how smooth it's been for my family and I.
Last night, you caught 4 passes and you scored a touchdown. It came off of an announcement that you made earlier on Monday about your involvement with IJM, International Justice Mission. Take me through why you're partnering with IJM, exactly how your production on the field is going to help them, and why you're contributing to them.
Yeah, this is something that's been building over the last 4 years. I was at PAO 4 years ago with my wife for the first time, and Gary Haugen, the founder of IJM, was speaking. Didn't really know much, if anything, about them at all. And I just remember he got done for, 30, 45 minutes of speaking. And at that time, my wife and I, just getting our feet wet in the league, and knew a bunch of guys who either had foundations or had a cause, that they were pretty passionate about. And so we were kind of searching, praying, and asking God, where he was calling us to. And I just remember Gary speaking, dude, and I was in tears. I'm pretty sure my wife was crying, and I look over at her and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is what we're gonna do. And she totally agreed. And from that day forward, we kind of took it upon ourselves and felt like this is what God is calling us to do. And so we've been, each year has been a different thing that we've done. But like last year, we did the Freedom Partner deal where I play for the Eagles, and so we raised $50,000 from the players, and we tried to see if the fans would match. And then we were playing Washington week 1, and so we're trying to see which team could raise more money before the game started and stuff. And so really cool deal just for IJM and the awareness. And then this year, was just thinking of ways to bring awareness, thinking about how passionate and how many, Bears fans there are across this, America, really. And so figured, try to tie, and something that always, works well or does well is tying giving to your play, and so it doesn't just give people a reason to, look at IJM, but it gives you a reason for people to want to watch you do well, and see you succeed, and kind of partner with you in that way. And so figured, what is something I want to make an impact, but I don't want to say, here I'll give $5 a catch or $10 a catch, because that really, for in the situation that I'm in, isn't really me sacrificing much. And so we figured that we go 1,000 a catch and then 2,500 a touchdown, and we're hoping that the number gets pretty large.
Well, you have let's do the math quickly, right? You have 4 catches last night and you scored a touchdown. So that's 25 and 4, it's $6,500, right? From one game. So let's hope you're catching like 15 passes and scoring 4 touchdowns in a game. That'd be
awesome, wouldn't it?
An amazing, well, it'd be awesome on the field, but it'd be an amazing way to make a difference with IJM. Now, this isn't something that you just have heard about or even talked to Gary about or watched from afar. You went and kind of have learned about how IJM works. You took a trip, I think, down to the Dominican Republic earlier this year to learn more about that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the last 2 years, Benjamin Watson is a big advocate for IJM. And I remember 2 years ago at PAO, he kind of had the idea of not just having IJM come and speak, but like giving the players and the wives, if they want to, or and the girlfriends, if they want to come, an opportunity to go see firsthand, what IJM does. And so, Benjamin and his wife, kind of got together with IJM and put together this trip to the Dominican. And, they asked me if, I would be willing to go, and I was all in. I was definitely, excited about the opportunity. So we've gone the last 2 years in June. And just got to it just gives you a better understanding, and a better appreciation, for what the people do and this what they're able to do. And so, like, for example, the first year was kind of just the basics, understanding of what IJM is, what do they do, how do they do it, to who do they do work for. And then last year was really big because we got to meet with the vice president and the attorney general and a bunch of high up people in the country. And got to meet with them for like basically the whole day, and it's not easy, as you can imagine, to get a meeting with the vice president, of a country.
Sure.
And she welcomed us with open arms, and basically they knew that they have a problem, and they knew that IJM was doing great work, and so they told IJM that they have every resource in the country to continue to do what they're doing and help stop, sex trafficking there in the Dominican. And so, which is, extremely powerful and was huge, not just for us and not just for the field office in the Dominican, but also think about the thousands of lives, these kids, who are being trafficked, and they hear about this, that there's actually hope and that the country is actually doing stuff for them, and they have a chance to get out, and not have to go through this anymore. So it was massive on all scales.
Yeah, it's really great work you're doing with IJM, International Justice Mission. Check them out. Also, a tweet came over my feed right before we were taping this here on Tuesday from the Bears, and it says, Bears players and ownership are committing more than $500,000 to local social justice programs, becoming the first team to maximize the NFL's new social justice initiative. The committee spearheading the cause sits down to discuss why it's important. And it's a video, and you're in that video with your quarterbacks and Sam Acho and a few others. Tell me about why that's important to you, and certainly maybe even representing the Bears too.
Yeah, man, this is going to be really big. So I guess this year the NFL passed an initiative that clubs had to match player giving up to $250,000 to a social injustice nonprofit, basically.
Yeah.
And so what we had to do is we formed the committee, 5 guys, who are who want to be or who are heavily involved in the community, and then 4 people on the staff who want to help as well. And basically, we have a lot more. I think we're going to have a lot more than 500,000. But basically, the club matches up to $250,000. And then, like behind the scenes, the Bears Care, which is like their community outreach program, will match any donation up to $2,500 per person.
Wow!
So each person has $2,500. It's actually $5,000. And then on top of that, the NFL match up to $5,000 as well. So if you give $2,500, now it's $7,500, and then the club matching on top of that for the $250,000. So now you're talking about your money's quadrupled basically. And then the owner George Gasky said he'll match anything above $250,000. So there's a lot of cool things going on here in Chicago, especially in the locker room. And we're doing a lot of research, nonprofits that do some great work in the city. Fortunately, there's a lot of them, so it's kind of been tough. We haven't been able to get the decision out which ones we're going to go with. But yeah, man, we're working on it, and it's exciting times here. We're
talking to Trey Burton here from the Chicago Bears on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Last time we had you on, I guess we had you on twice. We had you on right after you won the Super Bowl, and certainly then you had you on a really great interview that people should go back and listen to with Andy Mineo, the rapper, which I really enjoyed that podcast, one of my favorites. But I want to talk to you about faith, because faith in the locker room with the Eagles last year was big. It became prominent, especially with what happened winning the Super Bowl. But now you're in Chicago, and you said it felt like home. So tell me about what that looks like from the faith perspective in the dynamic with the team. I know there's a lot of guys there who are solid, and just tell me what that's been like.
Yeah, it's different, I knew coming to this not to expect, really not to know what to expect. I didn't really have many expectations, and we're just trying to figure out, where to go and what to do, and just see, what's needed. And like the last thing I wanted to do, and I was telling myself this daily, I don't want to just walk in there and gangbuster style and say, hey, this is the way we did it in Philadelphia, because it was extremely successful. Just didn't want to say, this is how we did it, this is how we're going to do it. Like, no, I need to hear it out, and I need to see what's going on. And it takes time, it's not something that's built overnight, and you got to build these relationships. And
have you been able to kind of have any kind of team Bible studies or anything like that yet? Or is it, again, still too early? And if not, what's your daily disciplines look like in terms of your faith?
Yeah, it's something that we're working on. It's something that is kind of new in a way. We're kind of trying to find the chaplain and trying to find what guys would be interested in, and we're just trying to really build these relationships right now. And I think within the end of this year, or even during OTAs and the off-season program and things like that, we'll have a lot better schedule and a better understanding on what the guys are looking for and what's really needed. But for myself, we've kind of started a thing in the thing that we do 15 minutes through a book of the Bible. So basically a chapter a day for the most part, probably 5 days, and just go through the book, together in a room with a couple guys, and just go over the things we like, the things that God's, revealing to us at that time, and, what's good and stuff. And stuff we've kind of been doing so far.
You wrote recently, I know you write for Sports Spectrum's The Increase, which is on our page, about your battle with anxiety. Why was that so important for you to share that part of what you went through and be so open about it? Because it is a prominent sort of topic, especially in the sports world, and anxiety. Why was that so important to you to share your story?
Well, it's something that a lot of us go through. There's, regardless if you want to believe it or not, there's a lot of pressures, that athletes in particular have on themselves, not only exterior pressure, but interior pressure. I know for myself, like, I want to play so well, and I want to be, that great player, who, can score, can block, and, is a great teammate and all that type of stuff. But not too many people understand those types of pressures. And so I think, within the athletic community, we hold ourselves to such a high standard, and then on top of that, say I do have a bad game, and then now I got all this exterior pressure, from people on the outside saying this and saying that, and even good games, bad, it doesn't matter, either or, good or bad, you still have all these people, looking at you as this sports figure, this guy who, in my case, this guy, who's gets paid, a lot of money to play this sport, and I need to perform at a high level. So there's just a lot of things that guys go through, that people don't really realize, and we're human, as well.
Trey, let's close it with this. You posted on Twitter that your verse for this season is John 5:44, which says, "How can you believe in me when you seek and receive glory and approval from one another, and yet you do not seek the glory and approval which comes from the one and only God?" That's a powerful verse in John 5:44. Let's close with why you chose that verse and what that verse means to you. Why did you choose that?
Yeah, I think, in the position that I'm in now, and, being a starter and being in a big city like Chicago, it's very easy to try to want to seek the fans' approval, want to seek, your teammates' approval, want to seek, whoever, social media, media, whatever, realm it is. And so, like, I see a lot of times, and I'm talking about myself here too, I'm trying to get the approval from other people. And so,
Sure.
And at the end of the day, that's not what we're called to do. We're called to be secure within God and what God's called you to do, and where He has you. And I'm really only supposed to be listening to Him, and I feel like a lot of times, and going into the season, Because like I said, like I've never really been in this position before, and so a lot of times, you want everybody to like you. At least me. Like I want everybody to like me. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to think that I'm being paid fairly. And not too much. And all these worldly things. When in reality, like, man, none of that really matters, bro. Like at the end of the day, God's put me here. God's given me this opportunity. And at the end of the day, I'm called to glorify Him, and I'm only really supposed to care about what He says about me. And so, I mean, I guess long story short, I get a lot of times I can get caught up, and I can find myself getting caught up or reading what people are saying on Twitter or reading what people are saying on Instagram, when in reality, like that's the last thing I'm supposed to be doing. And so it was kind of like me calling myself out, on social media, and having people hold me accountable, in a sense of like, this is what I'm striving to do, and I'm striving to seek God's glory, and that's it. And so that's why I posted that.
He is Trey Burton, Chicago Bears tight end. We'll keep you accountable. We'll get you back on towards the end of the season, and we'll see how the season went, right? There you go.
Do it, man.
I appreciate you. Trey, best of luck the rest of the year. Best wishes, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bro. Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
And we do thank Trey Burton, Chicago Bears tight end, for joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. And it's early in the NFL season, but I'm excited to see Trey's role with the Bears as a tight end. Heck, they even lined him up under center in the Monday night win over the Seahawks, and he was able to get a 2-yard sort of first down play on a run-pass option. So Trey's going to be used in a lot of different ways, I'm sure, with Chicago, and he's a versatile player, and I'm excited to watch him and his career continue with the Bears. We thank you for listening. We also thank Compassion International for sponsoring this podcast. $38 a month, education, tutoring, medical care, food, vocational training, knowing who Christ Jesus is. This is what your $38 does when you sponsor a child through Compassion International, releasing a child from poverty. Join us here at Sports Spectrum and sponsor a child with compassion today. Go to compassion.com/sports spectrum, $38 a month. Make a difference in a child's life. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Of course, you can find us at sportspectrum.com. That's the place where all of our content is found. You can also reach us on social media, of course, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. And I also want to encourage you, for $18 for a year, $18, that's all it is, you can subscribe to the Sports Spectrum magazine. You get 5 issues, including a welcome magazine, and just a great way, a great tool with the stories of sports and faith, devotionals, all that, but a great tool as a magazine to give to someone, whether it's a child, whether it's a youth group, men's ministry, heck, just a church setting, or even just a sports team. You can hand this magazine to them and make a difference, because when they open it and read it, they read more than just sports. They read about faith in Christ. Really cool opportunity. $18. Go to sportspectrum.com and subscribe today. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Have a great rest of your day.